Here you are, sir. Enjoy.
Ah, hello, delicious. Come to Papa.
Listen! He ate it!
Are you ready, kids?
Listen, dude, I don't need to tell you that SpongeBob isn't afraid to get weird and show some grotesque scenes. You thought I'd subject you to the infamous toenail scene? Of course I wouldn't do that. You clicked on the video. That wouldn't be nice to do. But just remember, I can unleash it at any time, so hit that like button or else it's bye-bye toenail, Mr. Tentacles! Anyway, SpongeBob has always been a little off here and there as to leave you, the viewer, with some unaddressed and repressed trauma. Growing up with some of these episodes that would cause said trauma, it's funny to think how it's all stayed with me. Vividly remembering episodes or specific scenes from episodes that would cause a physical cringe response, much like my content. I am Jordan Cringe after all. So, continuing our darkest series here on the channel, we are jumping over and talking about a famously darker episode of SpongeBob, Nasty Patty. The episode where SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs try to cover up a potential murder. This episode came to us in the early years of SpongeBob as a part of Season 3, and it opens a bit differently at first with a dark and rainy sea, as the narrator spoils the plot of them thinking they killed someone. They were probably forced to toss that in there before this passed for television. But then it changes to a nice sunny day at sea, and we start the episode as most do, at the Krusty Krab, where we find Eugene Krabs bathing in money, as a health inspector pulls up to make sure the establishment is up to par with the quality of their food. Krabs, in a panic, runs to SpongeBob to make sure this guy gets the 5-star treatment. Yes, more than Squilliam Fancy Son.
Squidward, I must tell you. Thank you.
So, for no cost, Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob spoil the health inspector with everything on the menu, and yes, that does include fresh sludge pudding. Plankton could never. The health inspector is pleased with everything and just needs to try a regular Krabby Patty, but right before they serve it to him, a news report comes on the TV saying to be on the lookout for a fake food inspector who is going around trying to get free food. This angers Mr. Krabs, so he comes up with an idea of serving him what would be deemed
The Nasty Patty.
He said it! He said it!
He forces SpongeBob to partake in this by saying he would be fired if he doesn't help. I will touch on this part later in the video, but yes, this is a very differing factor for how SpongeBob treats the sanctity of a Krabby Patty and how Mr. Krabs treats money, but I digress. Together with combinations like dunking it in the toilet and adding toenail clippings, they make one of the most foul-looking food creations I've ever seen. At least in drawing form. It could be worse. It could be Arby's. Fast food roast beef just sounds scary. They run and hand it to him as they watch from afar, him choking and gasping for air. They think it's from the awfulness of the burger, but truly it was from a random fly going into his throat before taking a bite, thus causing him to pass out. The news comes back on and the food inspector imposter was caught, and it all hits them at once. The real health inspector is now assumed dead by SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs, who now have a worse problem. They just murdered a real health inspector. The two freak out and come to the realization they need to get rid of the body and bury it. The two head out into the middle of nowhere and begin to dig his grave. Right as the health inspector comes to, a giant rock SpongeBob hit when digging the grave flies over and hits him on the head, causing him to pass out again. Now they fully bury him, but before they make it out scot-free, the police pull up and joke about what they were doing out in the middle of nowhere this late and offer to drive him back to the Krusty Krab if they cook him up some Krabby Patties. As SpongeBob goes to put the shovel in the trunk, the rain, yes, the undersea rain, unearths the body, and SpongeBob quickly puts the body in the trunk as well. Again, the health inspector wakes up and the trunk slams on his head. Now he's out cold once again. Krabs slyly asks SpongeBob to bring the body around back to the freezer, but once they arrive, the back door is locked, so SpongeBob goes through the front of the restaurant in front of Krabs and the cops with the body hidden in his employee hat. To distract the cops even further, Mr. Krabs opens the cash register as to give the cops all the money, as the first two customers get all the money in the cash register night. And this is what I wanted to wait for before I brought up the unrealistic character moments from both SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs. Any average episode of the show, maybe aside from Pretty Patty, SpongeBob cherishes the way a proper Krabby Patty is made and will, again in most average cases, never tamper with the final product. But here, regardless of the threat of being fired, jumps on board quickly to make the Nasty Patty. And Krabs, well, he loves money over all else, in some cases more than his own daughter, or even when he wanted to impress Mrs. Puff. Here, he is willingly giving the health inspector free food, then gets mad thinking he's the imposter and makes another another Krabby Patty for him for free.
We've been Smeckledorfed.
That's not even a word, and I agree with you.
Yes, it's deadly and disgusting as ever, but it's free. But to top it all off, he then offers the cops all of the money in the cash register. Even in the face of dealing with covering up a murder, Mr. Krabs would never, and I mean never, risk his money like that. This is the part in the comments where someone finds a specific episode and corrects me on that matter. Listen, I get it. You've seen SpongeBob 17 times more than I have. I'm sorry. But these are just weird character differences for these two compared to most other episodes, so I found it interesting to point that out. The cops then get a call that sounds oddly familiar to what Krabs and SpongeBob were just doing out in the middle of nowhere, so they have to go and respond to that. So Krabs gives them a free drink for their troubles. But uh-oh, it has no ice in it. Now since SpongeBob put the body in the freezer, he then remarks to Mr. Krabs that the dark deed you requested is done, but the cop needs ice. So she heads to the back to the freezer and they plead with her not to open the freezer door. This leads to them confessing about the murder after a back and forth of blaming each other for the whole thing. But when they open the freezer, it's empty. And they claim it was all a joke, and maybe the body turned into a zombie and walked out. Then walking in, all zombie-like from the shadows, is the health inspector. All good, but before he can say anything, the police jump in and beat him up even more, just like in real life. He then explains that the Krusty Krab actually passed the health inspection, and to celebrate, Mr. Krabs is making sure that everyone gets Krabby Patties for half off. But they couldn't end it without one more door slam on this poor food inspector's face. Like, yeah, he was kind of a prick at the start, but he was just doing his job. He didn't deserve to get almost murdered by a fly, by a sponge and his crab boss, or by all the various heavy objects slamming on his head. The episode ends with a stormy sea shot once more when the narrator calls them all idiots.
They are all idiots, aren't they?
Followed up with what might be the best ending to opening of the next part of the episode I've ever seen. Idiot box. That couldn't have been any more perfect right there. But at the end of the day, it just feels so weird to watch this as an adult and think back to watching it as a kid and perceiving it as just slapstick humor. I mean, it's still pretty funny. I find that the whole episode is still a solid classic from start to finish. Although I do feel like this, sends an interesting message to kids. Oops, you're a murderer now because your boss coerced you into it. Guess you gotta go bury the body and evade the cops. Now, of course, the message here is clearly, hey, don't murder, you idiot. And clearly they aren't glorifying it or making it seem like what SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs are doing is a good thing. You, the viewer, should be taking away that this is wrong, and it's all in the guise of situational comedy. Because like I said, the episode actually holds up pretty well. It's dark, maybe a little too dark for kids television today, but it did leave an impact on me. All of SpongeBob did really, but it's episodes like this that stick out like a sore thumb in remembrance. I'm sure I'll have plenty future videos on dark, strange, and weird episodes from SpongeBob, so let me know in the comments what other SpongeBob episodes stood out to you like this when you think about them, as well as what other shows had some pretty dark episodes out of nowhere. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure to hit that like button for me if you enjoyed the video. I would truly appreciate it, and it helps the video out very much so. I'm working on a bunch of upcoming videos and I can't wait to share them with you all. We are so close to 50,000 subscribers, and I want to say thank you once again for all the support and kindness you have shown me and these videos. I will see you later this week with another video, but until then, later.